Dota 2 and League of Legends are two of the biggest mobile games in the world. Because of this, these games are often compared to each other in almost every aspect: character design, art style, monetization, esports, fan service, you name it. But one of the key differences between the two is how they treat one of the core aspects of mobile games. Well, most mobile games. Gold. It is one of the most impactful resources in MOBAs. In both games, gold can be used to buy items to either increase your character's power or provide added utility. Gaining a significant gold lead against the enemy team, or even just your role opponent, can completely lopside a game in your favor, and despite this, your teammates will still find a way to somehow snatch defeat out of the draws of victory. In this video, we'll be talking about how this simple mechanic fundamentally changes how both games are played. The main difference between the two games lies in how easy/difficult it is to gain gold in either game. In League of Legends, there are 6 ways that a player can gain gold: killing minions, killing monsters including grubs, herald, baron, and dragons, killing enemy champions, pinging/destroying enemy wards, tiki plating before 14 minutes, and destroying enemy structures. Meanwhile, Dota has killing creeps, killing neutral camps including Tormentor and Roshan, killing heroes, destroying enemy structures, denying your own structures, killing wards, killing couriers, gold earned through stacking camps, and collecting bounty runes. Sounds about the same, but killing couriers and picking up these bounty runes awards gold to your entire team, further incentivizing you to do so, especially if you're playing support. My support would never do this though, because they're too busy stealing last hits and messing up the wave. Dota also has 14 jungle camps on each side of the map. Compare this to League's 6, and they respawn every minute, so not only are there more camps to take, but they also respawn more frequently. Both games also have passive gold generation at roughly the same rate of about 2 gold per second. But Dota scales as the game goes on, whereas League's remain set from the get-go. As you can see, Dota simply has more means of generating gold, especially in recent years where things like the Tormentor and the Fly Barragreet have been introduced to the game. And this makes sense. Dota has more expensive items, with some costing upwards of 4,000, 5,000, and even 6,000 gold, whereas most items in League cost about 3,000 gold without having any additional upgrade pans. And this coincides with the game length, as most League matches tend to be about 25 to 35 minutes long, and even shorter if and when your team surrenders because your top laner got outlaned by Kayle. This difference in gold availability completely changes how both games are typically played out. In both games, the laning phase is the only time you're really guaranteed to be able to sit in a lane and collect farm. But because there are fewer ways to earn gold in League, every single bit of CS you can get just becomes that much more valuable. So please, for the love of God, stop missing cannon minion. Laning phase kills are incredibly valuable of League. This isn't just because you get a nice chunk of golden XP, but once you kill an opponent, it takes about 30 seconds, plus their death timer, for them to walk of shame back to lane, and that's where you can farm golded power plates, while the enemy contemplates their life choices. In fact, certain heroes are designed to get ahead in the laning stage, as they're useless when drawing even or from behind, like Riven and Teemo. That's why if you're playing jungler, I highly suggest you camp the lane against these heroes and turn the rest of the game into 4v5 instead of trying to gank enemy LeBlanc and not even getting her flash. Meanwhile in Dota, laning stage kills aren't as crucial. Oh, what's that? I died in lane. Doesn't matter, I'll just TP back to lane for free and minimize the gold and experience I lose. And as long as I don't die too often, no lead is completely insurmountable. Does that mean that you should just play the laning stage like you have a death wish? Of course not, because unlike in League, Dota has a mechanic where you lose a portion of your gold on death. However, there's one key skill that you need to master to gain a significant gold advantage during the laning phase, and that's wave manipulation. Winning lane and with it, a gold lead in both games usually comes down to who can manage the wave better. Depending on your character, you either want to be in one of two positions: bringing the wave as close to your tower as possible without the tower attacking it, so you can comfortably farm without risk of getting ganked, or shoveling the wave as far in as possible to get turret plating, chip damage, or give yourself a roaming opportunity. Or pick Singed or Axe and proxy like a bitch. In any case, by doing these effectively, you're denying the enemy gold by staying safe from a gank or forcing the opponent to lose CS to their own tower, which is why you'll see pros put so much emphasis on their laning fundamentals. Now here's where things get tricky. League has fairly easy to understand wave manipulation tactics. You need to have a minion disadvantage to reliably freeze lane and match the enemy shoving with your own skills. You also need to make sure that the wave isn't under your tower, so your opponent can't get plating, or have the wave bounce back to their side on the map. Meanwhile, over in the land of a game with an actually decent client, Dota players have access to 2 other key tools to manipulate the wave: denying creeps, which is killing your own minions as they're about to die to ensure that the enemy gets less XP and 0 gold, and camp pulling, which is to have a nearby neutral camp attack your wave to both deny resources and disrupt the wave state. I would actually argue that between the two games, laning is actually so much harder in League, simply because if your opponent has already managed to kill you twice, freezes the wave, and has the tools to zone you off, Where else are you supposed to get gold? You're just forced to pray for a gank from a jungler who's too busy dying to an invade. Meanwhile, in Dota, if you're against a completely cancerous lane duo like God forbid CM and Viper, while you're playing something like a Mars and Earthshaker, you have a lot more options. You can bluff their pull camp with a board, pull their hard camp to disrupt the wave, say fuck it and gank their mid SF, what's he gonna do, raise, and you can always sack the lane and start jungling. Sure, it's not an ideal laning phase, but at least you'll get something. Dota also has the unique mechanic of stacking jungle camps to generate more gold and increase farming efficiency for your team. By pulling a camp at just the right time, you're able to allow another camp to spawn at the same location without killing the previous one. This'll make your jungle look like modern-day America's housing system, the difference being that the jungle creeps actually have money. And whoever gets these stacks will be injected by the dopamine rush of the sweet sound of clanging coins. If you didn't play the lane right because A, your lane mate sucks, B, your jungler sucks, or C, your mid laner sucks, then you're likely play from behind, and that's okay, because gold can then play a pivotal role in the most dopamine-inducing scenario that keeps our stupid little monkey brains requeuing for matches in this godforsaken genre. Comebacks. Winning a close game is one thing, but coming back from a match where you were so far behind early on, but through a series of good plays and, let's be real, a few misplays from the enemy, managed comeback is the best feeling any mobile player can get, especially when the enemy has already started trash talking and they suddenly just shut up as they watch the game fall apart right before their very eyes. Everyone loves a good comeback, but comebacks are also different because of how gold works in both games. In League, it feels like besides backdooring, the only way to come back is to win a teamfight through proper selection and execution, which is easier said than done. Wombo combos only work in theory, as late-game teamfights can be so chaotic that it's hard to actually pull anything off. Yes, Seraphine, Malphite, Yasuo ult wombo combos can happen, but so many things have to go right. For example, me being on the team that gets womboed. On the other hand, Dota gives you even more tools to make comebacks possible. With proper macro play, you can ensure that you won't be too far behind at Trimsicle by farming neutral stacks, using smoke ganks, securing small objectives like bounty runes, and more. That isn't to say that comebacks by a wombo combo teamfight wins don't happen. In fact, they happen quite often, but Dota lets you use gold to buy the tools necessary to make these comebacks happen, like Blink Daggers, Force Staves, Yield Scepters, Sentry Wards, and perhaps the biggest comeback tool, buyback. The power of capitalism knows no bounds, as with enough gold, you can buy yourself back from the debt and return to the fight ASAP. It's such a pivotal resource in the late game that entire matches are decided by who has buyback or not, with teams avoiding fights for a whole 7 to 8 minutes just to have it available again. Both games also have a kill streak system, and they work pretty similarly. If a player gets multiple kills in a single life, they accumulate a bounty that increases with every kill until a certain threshold, and whoever kills that player claims a target shutdown goal, which usually happens to be my support. Thanks, Yumi. But any League player will tell you that after a certain point, if your team simply gets outdrafted and doesn't have the built-in tools to deal with a certain champion, you just won't have the resources necessary to kill that hero in the late game. Like, if you have a no-stun lineup against a Fedmaster E, the opponent knows how to keep a lead, some League games are just over. That's why I would argue that the inclusion of the surrender option isn't just about appeasing the player base, but an intentional part of the game's design. Not every game is going to be winnable, the same way that some games feel like they're just too easy. Realistically speaking though, snowballs and comebacks only happen in the minority of games. I would say that matchmaking pits players against equally skilled opponents, and most lanes would end up as complete stalemates. That is, if those lanes don't have an X factor, which happens to be the jungler and the position 4. As you likely already know, League has a dedicated jungler role. In a way, the jungler's main job is to generate gold for their team, through clearing camps, ganking lanes, and taking neutral objectives. Champions played in the jungle tend to be balanced around how well they can accomplish these tasks, like Nudo and Willump, Jarvan IV, and perhaps the most iconic jungler, Lee Sin. Dota's closest alternative is the position 4, the soft support or playmaking support, which is often tasked with getting just enough farm to buy impactful items like Blink Dagger and Force Staff to make plays around the map. Some examples include Earthshaker, Tusk, and Earthspirit. Both of these roles have the job of impacting the game through making plays, particularly in the early game. A successful gank can generate a solid gold lead for a laner, especially if they're the ones claiming the kill. But the difference is that, in Dota, the playmakers are still supports. They are lower on the farm priority list than their hard carry mid laner or offlaner, so they don't always have the freedom to clear camps like League's junglers. Pair this to League, where their camps are reserved solely for the jungler, especially in the early game, and taking them will be considered griefing and is usually met with your teammates running a town mid. Though, honestly, they'll do this anyway. While there are some junglers that can give up their farm and gank kills to their carries to funnel them even more resources, like Rel and Rammus, there are other junglers that are designed to carry from their ganks, like Hecarim, Kindred, and Graves. Not to mention that position 4 supports in Dota aren't always able to freely roam. They are still usually played as part of a dual lane, and not all off-lane heroes are designed to be able to be self-sufficient in 2v1 scenarios, like many of League's top laners. Leaving lane at the wrong time can cost their teammate their life, especially against strong lane duos. This is in stark contrast to junglers, who are roaming around the map constantly, trying to find out how to make gold through clearing, ganks, invades, or taking objectives. And while certain junglers in League can start ganking after clearing just a single camp, Boss 4 supports need time to reach their full potential, as these playmaking items can be quite expensive. Blink Dagger, Force Staff, and Yule Scepter, among other items, all cost over 2,000 gold, but High Wish Drafter will still find a way to rush Shadowblade. You might think that this is easy to achieve because of how abundant gold is in Dota, but the fact remains there's still a finite amount of gold on the map, and it would be better off in the hands of a carry so that they can hit their power spikes faster than the role opponent. Though both the jungler and the position 4 have the similar role of impact the game, it's interesting to look at how this changes relative to how available gold is in both games. They're playing a few thousand hours in both games. I would say that League is a lot more punishing in terms of deaths. If you give up a few early deaths in League, the enemy will snowball, and unless you have an answer to them, you might as well surrender at 15. And honestly, that's how things should be. If you feed a kill, you made a mistake somehow, and you deserve to be punished for that mistakes. In other words, if you're bad, you should feel bad, which motivates you to get even better. What if it's just one of those games where the jungler keeps camping your lane, even after 3 to 4 deaths? What counterplay do you even have if you get power though and your team can't capitalize? That's why I like Dota's approach to gold, as it gives you a lot more agency. I never felt like a game was completely unwinnable, even after a horrible 0-5 start. I think Valve and Riot have made 2 amazing MOBAs that, despite being in the same genre, have developed their own unique identity and playstyle. And while gold plays a big part in these games' differences in identity, money isn't everything, and I look forward to taking a closer look at the differences between both these games in the future. If you're a fan of either or both of these games and want to see how they compare in other aspects like item design, gameplay design, and more, or if you dislike my content, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate any amount of support and will be creating more videos like this in the future. Ace out. Oh.